You ever get that feeling that high school education is, well, kind of struck? Like it's still running on this old system
Uh-huh.
where everyone the same age learns the same stuff at the same speed just because they're in the same room. It makes you wonder if there's a better way.
Absolutely. That frustration, I think a lot of people feel it. The traditional model, based on age and seat time, it doesn't always match how people actually learn.
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're taking a deep dive into something called mastery-based progression
Hmm.
in high schools. It sounds, well, pretty radical, honestly.
It is a radical rethink, yeah. It puts genuine understanding, like really getting it front and center.
So instead of just moving on because the calendar says so?
Exactly. Advancement depends on showing you've actually mastered the skills or the knowledge.
Okay, so it's
Yep.
kind of like, remember video games. You
Yeah.
can't just hang out on level 1 forever and expect to get to level 2.
Right.
You have to actually beat the level, prove you can handle it.
That's a perfect analogy, actually. It reframes learning around competence, not just time served.
So for this deep dive, we've got this great article that really unpacks it all. Our mission, I guess, is to explore this alternative way. What does it look like? Is it working? And, help listeners figure out if this might be something that could work for their kids, especially if they want that deeper learning.
Yeah, could this be a key to unlocking maybe a more meaningful way to learn for some students?
Precisely. So we'll look at, like, the core principles, see how it differs from the norm,
We'll check out some actual schools doing this.
right? And see what kind of results they're getting, and then give folks some pointers on deciding if it's a good fit.
Sounds good. So where do we start? The fundamental differences.
Yeah, let's unpack that. What really sets mastery-based learning apart from, what most of us went through?
Well, the biggest one, as we mentioned, is moving away from seat time. The idea that just being there for a certain number of hours means you learned something.
Right. The clock doesn't dictate progress anymore.
Exactly. It's about showing mastery, however long that takes for an individual student. Some might fly through a concept, others might need more time. And that's okay.
That leads right into the next point, doesn't it? Personalized learning paths.
Definitely. If progress isn't tied to the group's pace, then each student's path can adapt. It can lean into their strengths, give them support where they stumble.
Or even let them dive deeper into things they're passionate about.
Yeah, it acknowledges that people just learn differently. Someone might be a math whiz but need more time on writing, or vice versa. The system can adjust.
And the way they check for understanding, the assessments,
Huh.
that sounds different too, not just bubble tests.
Generally, yeah. It often leans more towards real-world tasks, projects, presentations, problem solving, things that show you can use the knowledge, not just recall facts.
Authentic application, I think the article called it.
That's the term. It's about doing, not just memorizing.
Okay, but how do you define mastery? Is it just, like, subjective?
No, and that's crucial. Good programs have really clear, uh, rigorous standards. They define exactly what skills or knowledge constitute mastery for each area. It's transparent.
So everyone knows the target they're aiming for.
Right. Students, teachers, parents, everyone's on the same page about the learning goals.
And the students' role changes too, right? They're not just passively receiving information.
Much more active, they have more agency, they navigate their learning more. It encourages them to take ownership.
Which sounds great, but also needs structure, I imagine. The article mentioned some organizations that help with that. The Mastery Transcript Consortium, MTC.
Right, the MTC. They're doing fascinating work on basically reinventing the transcript, trying to show colleges what a student can do, not just their grades.
So instead of just B+ in history.
You might see evidence of specific skills, like analyzing primary sources or constructing historical arguments. It gives a much richer picture of their actual competencies.
That makes a lot of sense for college admissions, actually. And there was another one, the Aurora Institute.
Yeah, Aurora focuses more on helping schools develop those robust standards we talked about. They provide guidelines, best practices, ensuring the academic rigor is there.
Okay, so these groups help ensure it's not just, learn at your own pace without real benchmark.
Exactly. They help maintain the quality and credibility.
Good. Now, the article gave some really cool examples of schools actually doing this. Alpha School in Austin, Texas, they sounded like a big deal in this space.
They really are. What's striking about Alpha is their use of AI. They have this system, like a learning GPS, that tracks progress and adapts constantly.
AI-driven, wow.
Yeah, it spots where a student needs help, but also where they're excelling and maybe ready for a bigger challenge or to move faster. It's incredibly personalized.
That sounds very
Right.
Futuristic almost.
Yeah.
Then there's Khan Lab School, founded by Sal Khan.
Right. In Mountain View, they use mastery principles, but in these mixed age groups, which they call independence levels.
Big stage. How does that work?
Well, students aren't strictly grouped by birthday. They move up, or level up, as they say, when they demonstrate competency. So you might have older kids working alongside younger kids on certain things.
That could be really interesting for, like, peer mentoring.
Exactly. It fosters collaboration and maybe even some teaching among students.
Then there's Laurel Springs School, which is online.
Yeah, Laurel Springs caters to students needing flexibility, maybe young athletes, actors, entrepreneurs. It's self-paced, but not totally hands-off.
Also,
They have frequent check-ins, feedback loops, iterative assessments. Students revise work based on feedback until they show mastery. So there's still guidance.
okay, structure within the flexibility. What about the Grauer School in Encinitas, California? Different vibe.
Very different, much smaller scale. Tiny class sizes, averages like 12 students. They blend mastery with Socratic discussion and expeditionary learning.
Expeditionary learning, like field trips.
More than that, think hands-on, real-world projects, tackling actual problems. So it combines that personalized mastery pace with deep discussion and practical application, strong mentorship focus, too.
That sounds really engaging.
Yeah.
Okay, and CompuHigh Whitmore School, another online one.
Yes, and their big thing seems to be iterative revision. Submit work, get feedback, revise, resubmit. Keep going until you hit the mastery standard. Really suits self-directed learners who like to perfect things.
Right, persistence pays off. And the last one was Think Global School. That sounded wild.
It is pretty unique. Students literally travel the world. They live in different countries each term, tackling projects related to the culture and global issues there. Mastery is shown through deep engagement with these real-world problems.
Wow, learning by doing, taken globally. It's amazing how different they all are, even under the same mastery umbrella. The article pointed out some of those key differences in approach.
Like Alpha's reliance on AI for that super individualized path.
Yeah, technology is core there. Whereas Grauer seems all about that close, small group mentorship and hands-on experience.
Right, very different feel. One high-tech, one high-touch, in a way.
And Khan Lab School, with those mixed-age independence levels, creates a whole different social learning dynamic.
That peer interaction becomes a key part of the structure.
While Think Global uses the entire world as its classroom, essentially.
That experiential piece is absolutely central to their model.
The article had that table, comparing a few of them directly.
Yeah.
Let's see, Alpha, AI-driven, continuous assessment, personalized tracks.
Very data-driven, very adaptive.
Khan Lab, competency-based in those mixed groups. Assessments are demonstrations like projects, tracking via portfolios, and skill markers.
So more focus on showing, not just testing and building that portfolio over time.
Laurel Springs, self-paced online, varied assessments, routine checks on proficiency.
Balancing the freedom with accountability, making sure students stay on track even online.
And Grauer, Socrates Expeditionary, project and fieldwork assessments, personalized mastery tracking.
Emphasizing that deep dive through discussion and real-world application, tracked individually.
It really shows there isn't just one way to do mastery-based learning.
Not at all. Lots of innovation happening.
So, okay, different approaches, but what about the outcomes? Are these schools actually getting results? The articles seem pretty positive.
Yeah, some encouraging findings. One big one is higher graduation rates and better college readiness reported from these types of programs.
That makes intuitive sense, right? If you have to really learn something before moving on.
You likely build a stronger foundation, so when you hit college, you're perhaps better prepared for the workload and the depth required.
The article specifically mentioned STEM performance, too, something about a RAND study.
Yes, RAND research from 2023. It found students from mastery-based backgrounds performed up to, I think it was 14% better in college freshman STEM courses.
Wow, 14%. That's significant.
It suggests that deeper understanding and practice really pays off, especially in subjects like science and math.
And are they getting into good colleges? Sometimes parents worry about, non-traditional transcripts.
Well, schools like Alpha and Khan Lab report high acceptance rates, even at top-tier universities. It seems colleges are increasingly recognizing these competency-based transcripts and the value they represent.
That's really good to hear. What other benefits did the article mention? Deeper knowledge.
Yes, because you revisit concepts until they stick, retention seems better than just cramming for a test and forgetting it.
And it fosters what? More independence? Curiosity.
Definitely. When students have more control over their pace and path, it tends to boost that internal drive, that intrinsic motivation. They become more proactive learners.
Driven by curiosity, not just deadlines.
Exactly. And the focus on real-world tasks also seems to improve critical thinking and engagement. You have to grapple with problems, not just memorize answers.
And maybe less stressful, in a way.
It can be, yeah. Shifting focus from high-stakes tests and rigid timelines to actual understanding can lower anxiety for many students.
Of course, it's not perfect. The article did mention challenges, right?
Hmm.
Like it must be demanding for teachers.
Absolutely. Providing that personalized support takes significant resources, training, and time from educators. It's a different way of teaching.
And making sure kids still get enough social interaction.
That's another key point. Schools have to be really intentional about building community and collaboration opportunities when learning paths are more individualized.
Okay, so we've got the what, the how, some examples, the results. Now, the big question for listeners, how do you figure out if this is right for your kid? The article had a kind of checklist.
Right, some things for parents to think about.
First one, does your child really crave deep learning? Are they frustrated by just skimming surfaces?
Yeah, are they the kid who always asks why and isn't satisfied with a simple answer?
Second, are they naturally curious? Always asking questions, wanting to explore things beyond the textbook.
That intrinsic motivation piece again, do they pursue interests independently?
Third, how self-motivated are they? Or maybe are they eager to become more independent?
Because this model often requires, or at least develops, more self-direction. Is that something they'd thrive on or find really difficult?
And fourth, would they benefit from a tailored pace or style? Have they struggled with the one-size-fits-all approach?
If the traditional lockstep pace hasn't worked well, personalization could be a game changer.
Beyond that checklist, the article suggested thinking about temperament, like structured versus free-range learner.
Exactly. Does your child prefer clear instructions and schedules, or do they blossom with more freedom to explore? Neither is right or wrong, but it impacts the fit.
And things like time management skills, those seem important here.
Very important for self-paced learning. Are those skills already there, or is the school equipped to help develop them?
And finally, what are your priorities as a parent? Deep mastery versus, say, traditional grades and rankings.
Your own educational philosophy matters. What does success look like to you?
Okay, so if someone is seriously considering this, what questions should they ask specific schools? The article has some good ones, like how do you support kids who struggle with self-pacing?
Crucial question. What scaffolding is in place? How do they help students build those executive function skills if they're not there yet?
And how is progress actually documented? What does the transcript or report look like? Portfolios, dashboards.
You need to understand how learning is tracked and communicated to you and eventually to colleges.
What about social emotional learning? Mental health support. Still important.
Absolutely essential. How is the school nurturing the whole child, not just the academic side?
And extracurriculars, sports, arts, clubs. Is that stuff available?
Yeah, got to look at the whole high school experience.
And evidence. Ask for proof the program works.
Yeah.
Right? College placement data, alumni stories.
Definitely. Ask them to show you their track record. How are their graduates doing?
And last but not least, ask about the teachers. What training do they get to handle all this personalization?
Because the teacher's role is so critical and different in this model, you want to know they're well supported and equipped.
Okay, so wrapping this up.
Yeah.
The big idea here is shifting from time equals learning to mastery equals learning.
Right. It's about deep understanding, personalized paths.
And the potential upsides we talked about. Better college readiness, maybe especially in STEM, more autonomy, curiosity, maybe less stress. They sound pretty compelling.
They really do, though. The challenges in implementation are real, too.
So for listeners, it really comes down to reflecting on those questions. Thinking about your child, their needs, their style, your own values. Could this approach be a better fit?
It's a different way of thinking about high school, for sure, but potentially a very powerful one for the right student.
And maybe that leads us to the final thought to leave folks with. Could shifting our focus entirely from just time spent in a seat to actual demonstrated mastery, could that unlock a whole new level of potential for your child's education and maybe even their future?